Welcome to Trending Unpacked, the show where we explore the stories behind the trends shaping our world.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are setting coordinates for, well, a pretty terrifying destination. Earth, actually. Around 2026, give or take.
That's right. We're diving into Alien Earth.
Yeah.
It's the highly anticipated upcoming Hulu series developed by FX.
And it sounds like this isn't just, another sequel or prequel.
Not at all. This feels like a really ambitious, high-stakes attempt to revive one of cinema's most genuinely terrifying and, I'd say, philosophical universe.
Philosophical.
And they're trying to translate that specific kind of horror, that alien horror, into long-form prestige TV. That's a big ask.
It really is, especially when you think about the sheer weight this franchise carries. I mean, it's practically defined by two absolute giants.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got Ridley Scott's Alien from '79, that slow burn, visceral horror, basically a haunted house in space, right?
Exactly. Pure tension.
And then, boom, James Cameron completely flips the script in '86 with Aliens. Suddenly, it's this adrenaline-fueled military versus corporate nightmare.
Total tonal shift, but equally iconic. And that legacy, it's immense. Every single thing that's come since has been measured against those two.
Yeah.
Brutal standard.
Yeah, brutal is the word.
And I think the core genius, of those original films was taking this cosmic, almost unimaginable terror.
Derived from H.R. Geiger's designs, right? That grotesque biomechanical look.
Precisely. Taking that and making it feel deeply intimate, confined, claustrophobic, and just frighteningly tangible. It always felt like it was about human failure first, and the monster was almost secondary.
Until it wasn't secondary anymore.
Well, yeah, until it's right there.
Yeah.
But the setup was human error, human greed.
Okay, but here's the thing that really makes this project Alien. Earth, such a major point of interest for everyone. It's signaling this really critical departure from, the usual derelict ships and desolate moons we always see.
Right, we're used to seeing it out there.
Exactly. The whole premise seems to be bringing that existential horror, that systemic corporate greed, and, the xenomorph threat itself, bringing it all back down to Earth, literally.
Which is terrifying on a whole new level.
It grounds the fear in our reality in a way the franchise just hasn't really dared to do in live action before. Okay, so let's unpack the critical elements driving this new vision. Where do we even start?
I think you absolutely have to start with the creative force behind it. That tells you so much about the intended tone and, frankly, the quality they're aiming for.
Okay, who are we talking about?
The architect here is Noah Hawley.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. The mind behind shows like Fargo and Legion. Incredibly stylized, critically acclaimed, often pretty dense prestige television.
Right, Fargo and Legion, that's significant. Hawley's involvement feels like the single biggest signal that FX and Hulu are treating this IP with serious artistic intent. It's not just another genre show.
Definitely elevates it. If you look at his past work, Hawley just excels at dissecting really complex human psychology, right? And embedding that within these stylized, sometimes almost surreal narrative structures.
He's not known for straightforward action at all?
Not his main focus, no.
That's fascinating. Because if he applies that Fargo kind of methodology, where he takes seemingly simple crimes and uses them to just expose the moral rot and the sheer absurdity of a whole society.
Yeah, that ripple effect.
If he does that with the Alien universe, it suggests we should expect, fewer jump scares maybe, and more of that profound dread built on character breakdown and systemic failure.
Precisely. I think that's the expectation. In his shows, moral decay often comes before the actual chaos erupts. It sets the stage.
That makes sense.
And what's really crucial to realize here is that this is the first live-action Alien TV series. That shift to a long-form, serialized narrative format. It just gives Hawley so much more room to explore the world, more than a 2-hour film ever could.
Right, you can really stretch out, build the world.
He could spend like 10 hours just building the bureaucratic and ethical scaffolding that inevitably leads to humanity's self-destruction in this universe.
Which brings us back to the setting. That feels like the true, maybe revolutionary game changer here. Earth.
It really is.
Because the terror, historically, it's always been confined, right? To abandoned spaceships or corporate colonies out on some rock, places you don't live.
Somewhere distant. Manageable, maybe, in your mind?
Exactly. But setting it here, potentially in this near future, maybe slightly dystopian terrestrial setting, it just grounds the fear right where we are, makes the threat immediate, inescapable, maybe.
That immediacy is terrifying, yeah.
Yeah.
But we also need to nail down where this fits in the timeline, the canon placement.
Okay, yeah, good point. What do we know?
The sources are confirming it reportedly takes place before Ripley's storyline, before the original 1979 film.
Ah, okay, so earlier.
Much earlier.
Yeah.
Which means we're likely witnessing the the nascent stages of that corporate and military fascination with the xenomorph.
The very beginning of the obsession.
Right. It's probably about the very first, likely disastrous attempts by humans to manipulate and, crucially, weaponize this alien life right on our doorstep.
Wow. So we're not just seeing the monster. We're potentially watching the true origin story of Weyland-Yutani's deadly, profit-driven curiosity unfold on Earth.
That seems to be the implication.
We know the outcome decades later with Ripley's whole struggle, but seeing the steps that lead humanity to unleash this thing on itself here, that's an incredibly dark premise.
And Hawley's own description really supports this focus on, human folly. He called the series a mix of corporate dystopia and existential horror.
That sounds about right for him.
Yeah, and he stressed the intended focus is more on humanity, the choices, the betrayal, the sheer arrogance than on the monsters themselves. Until, of course.
Until it's much too late.
Exactly, until the consequences are unavoidable.
Focusing on that moral vulnerability first, I mean, that has to be the formula for making the xenomorph truly terrifying again, right?
I think so.
If it just pops out of the wall again and again, it just becomes spectacle. Action.
Diminishing returns, yeah.
But if the horror stems from the realization that the people who control your future are actually willing to sacrifice you for, like, a stock market advantage, that resonates profoundly. Especially now.
And that specific kind of corporate betrayal seems to be exactly why the early tone is being compared to other prestige sci-fi.
Like what?
Well, initial teasers have apparently drawn some strong comparisons in terms of tone and cinematography to really complex, visually demanding projects.
Yeah.
Think The Expanse, or even Blade Runner 2049.
Wow, okay. That's setting the bar high. That signals something way beyond typical creature fare.
For sure.
If you're evoking the massive, complex world building and, frankly, the political density of The Expanse.
For that rain-slicked, visually dense, philosophical vibe of Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, then you're promising really high production values and a serious thematic payload. It suggests a visually dark, industrial, highly detailed aesthetic, which feels absolutely essential to keeping that alien DNA intact.
Yes, it confirms a level of sophistication, I think. And consider the production context here. The release is slated for 2026, right? Production reportedly wrapped around mid-2025. That's a pretty long lead time.
Which allows for.
It allows for that level of visual polish you need to really sustain this kind of gritty, lived-in industrial future look over a whole season.
Right, you need time for post-production, effects, getting that look just right, and that gritty reality, it needs anchors. Right? Human anchors. The casting choices seem to reinforce that prestige intent, too.
Who do we have confirmed?
We've got Sidney Chandler, Timothy Olyphant, and Alex Lothar.
Okay, interesting. Olyphant in particular. He brings that unique blend of, charismatic authority, but also that underlying moral ambiguity.
Perfect for a Weyland-Yutani suit, maybe. Or some military figure is definitely hiding a dangerous truth.
Could either, yeah. He plays that gray area really well. And we should probably assume Chandler is maybe anchoring the perspective of the average person, the one caught between the rock and the hard place, the xenomorph and the corporation.
Filling that resilient survivor role like Ripley?
It seems likely. Her casting, along with the others, it elevates the potential for drama. It suggests the human interactions are going to carry just as much weight as any monster attacks.
Now, thinking about the massive, sprawling canon this show is stepping into, Hawley has a real challenge on his hands, doesn't he? How accessible is this actually going to be?
That's the million-dollar question for any franchise entry like this.
The expectation, from what the sources suggest, is that the series is designed to connect maybe loosely to the broader alien timeline.
Maybe nodding towards the engineers from Prometheus, that kind of thing.
Possibly, while still ensuring it remains totally accessible to newcomers who haven't, watched every film and read every comic.
It absolutely has to be accessible, especially for streaming. If you need a PhD in alien lore, just understand the basic plot. You immediately alienate. Well, no pun intended. You alienate the mass streaming audience that Hulu and FX need to capture.
So the core premise needs to work on its own.
Exactly. The basic horror premise, terrifying creature arrives on Earth, people panic, things go wrong. That's universal. The real challenge is weaving in Weyland-Yutani's decades-long pursuit of the organism without forcing viewers to have memorized, the entire supplementary history from novels and games.
It needs to stand alone, but also fit.
Yeah. It needs to work as a show where the core concept is just the terrifying arrival of this perfect organism on a planet that fundamentally thinks it's safe.
It sounds like a perfect balancing act they're attempting, honoring the canon enough for the established, really hardcore fans who demand that continuity.
And they do demand it.
Oh, yeah. But also ensuring that the central terror, a perfect organism chasing terrified, flawed people, is immediately clear and impactful for everyone else.
It's a tough needle of the thread.
Okay, so speaking of those longtime hardcore fans, we absolutely have to address the digital landscape here, because this is where the franchise's deep history starts clashing pretty directly with modern production realities.
You're talking about practical effects versus CGI.
Exactly. That discussion is just dominating fan forums right now. It's almost a religious argument for Alien fans, isn't it?
It really is, because the terror of the original film was just so rooted in H.R. Geiger's physical biomechanical designs. You felt the density, the slime, the weight, the sharp edges of the xenomorph.
But it wasn't just a creature. It was like a physical manifestation of industrial horror, a walking machine bone hybrid thing. It felt real.
And the sources confirm fans are incredibly passionate about this because, rightly or wrongly, they associate the decline of that tangible terror in some later franchise entries, even the prequels, to an extent with an over-reliance on, well, weightless CGI.
Right. When it looks too smooth, too digital.
Yeah. Practical effects, even with their limitations, they introduce flaws, texture, a sense of actual physical interaction in the space that digital effects often struggle to replicate. Especially for something meant to be as tactily repulsive as a xenomorph. You want to feel that slime almost.
And for a series that's promising this gritty, grounded tone, relying too heavily on pristine CGI could risk sacrificing that very foundational grittiness the teasers seem to be promoting.
Like a contradiction, yeah.
So Hawley's team is walking a real tightrope here. They have to honor that Geiger legacy, which demands a certain physical realism, but they also have to utilize the tools necessary for a sustained, maybe high action at times, television series.
And that presents a huge challenge just on a practical level for a television production schedule.
Yeah.
Films can spend months perfecting a few key practical shots.
Right.
But a 10-episode series might need dozens of seamless creature appearances. The hope, I think, among fans is that Hawley will favor blending techniques. Maybe practical puppets or suits for close-ups, the big dramatic reveals to maintain that Geiger weight and presence.
And then use CGI more sparingly.
Yeah, maybe use CGI for rapid motion or complex environmental interactions where practical just isn't feasible. It's about finding that sweet spot.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to the deeper lore debates. Because Reddit and YouTube are apparently buzzing with canon conundrums, especially around this Earth setting.
Oh, for sure. The implications are massive.
The biggest speculation, obviously, is that this series is going to show humanity's very first major Earth-based xenomorph outbreak.
That's the ultimate hook, right? The thing we've never really seen. But it creates the ultimate continuity problem.
How so?
Well, since the series is confirmed to be set before Ripley's era, specifically before the 1979 film, we have to assume that if there's a massive outbreak on Earth,
Weyland-Yutani somehow covers it up completely.
they have to, successfully.
Ah.
Because if the whole world already knows about xenomorphs running around on Earth before 1979, then the entire plot of the original Alien, which hinges on the corporation secretly trying to retrieve a specimen using the unwitting Nostromo crew, is completely undercut. It makes no sense.
Right. The secrecy is paramount in the first film. So the theories must revolve around containment then. Like, maybe it's a highly localized incident.
That seems most likely.
Confined to a single, maybe deep underground corporate testing facility. Or a major industrial zone that can be quickly quarantined and then just erased from public history.
Exactly. That's where the speculation is heavily focused. How will the series detail the extent of that early corporate knowledge? This show kind of needs to establish when and how Weyland-Yutani transitioned from merely, say, observing the organism maybe following up on contacts hinted at in Prometheus to actively, criminally trying to contain and profit from it.
It's the moment the corporation becomes truly knowingly evil.
Pretty much. The point of no return.
And that leads directly into the other big online debate. The timeline bridging speculation. There seems to be significant fan belief, or maybe hope, that Alien Earth will finally bridge the Prometheus storyline with the classic era.
Make those prequels feel properly integrated into the wider universe at last.
Yeah. Is that feasible?
It feels necessary, maybe, but also really risky.
Yeah.
The show needs to subtly establish the groundwork laid by the engineers in the black goo, that initial discovery of the life form's terrifying potential, right? And then seamlessly connect that early corporate contact, probably involving Weyland before the Yutani merger, to the later events that Ripley experiences.
But if they mess up that connection,
or if they retcon earlier entries too aggressively, then the fans who care most about the intricate lore, they'll likely reject it. That's the counter-fear you see circulating. It's a risk inherent in any major franchise expansion, especially one with such a complex, sometimes contradictory history. It's tricky.
Very tricky. Okay, let's pivot slightly again to the themes that Holly seems to be revisiting, because they feel stunningly relevant right now. Looking at trailer analysis online, YouTube creators are apparently heavily suspecting the plot will involve some intense android-human moral dilemmas.
Ah, the androids.
Yeah, drawing comparisons to the kind of dark territory explored in, say, Blade Runner.
Well, the android has always been a key thematic element in Alien, hasn't it? Going right back to Ash in the original film.
Whose true identity as basically an agent of the company was the first real human-level betrayal the Nostromo crew experienced, before the chest burster.
Absolutely. Or think about Bishop in Aliens,
Yeah.
who represents the possibility of a non-malevolent artificial intelligence, only to be immediately contrasted with the utter depravity of the human corporate representative, Burke.
Right. Burke was arguably worse than the aliens.
In many ways, yes. The android in this universe often serves as the perfect agent of corporate exploitation because it either lacks a conscience entirely, or maybe worse, its consciousness is programmed to prioritize profit and obedience to the company above all else.
Making it potentially more dangerous in a systemic way than the xenomorph itself.
Exactly. And that's classic, enduring sci-fi commentary, isn't it?
It really is. Which brings us back to why this franchise remains so culturally significant, and maybe why Hawley is tackling it now. Beyond the creature feature aspect, Alien is just this enduring critique of power structures.
Yeah, it carries these really strong feminist critiques, obviously with Ripley,
Yeah.
but also deep capitalist critiques that still hit exceptionally hard in the mid-2020s.
Absolutely. Ripley remains, for many, the quintessential cinematic hero, partly because she embodies resilience against both the creature and the unforgiving, profit-driven system that intentionally sacrifices her and her crew just for a biological sample.
The franchise succeeds most, I think, when it critiques that human arrogance, that corporate greed, that industrial dystopia.
And that socioeconomic critique feels like exactly what will be crucial to Alien, Earth's modern reception. I mean, we are currently grappling with such deep societal anxiety about unchecked corporate power, technological ambition outpacing ethical safeguards, stark income inequality.
All of that, yes.
So revisiting themes where human life is seen as disposable and corporate profits are prioritized above all else, it feels intensely relevant right now. It's like the potential xenomorph outbreak is almost a metaphor for financial crisis or environmental collapse caused by greed.
It really resonates. So if the aesthetics are meant to follow that theme, the ultimate visual question becomes, will Alien Earth successfully honor H.R. Giger's original haunting, grotesque legacy?
Can it maintain that organic, functional decay look? Or will the desire to modernize, maybe make it slicker for TV, push the visual style too far away from the franchise's biomechanical roots?
That's the aesthetic tightrope. But if the show successfully leans into that gritty, industrial, and dystopian tone, the one suggested by those comparisons to The Expanse or Blade Runner, it should maintain that sense of lived-in decay and functional darkness that define the Nostromo so well.
That oppressive, inescapable atmosphere.
Yes, where the environment itself feels sick and hostile. That's the key, I think, to restoring the primal terror. It needs to look less like a sterile, futuristic science facility and more like the inevitable ruin often caused by unchecked capitalism. Dark, oily, broken.
Okay, so we've covered the genesis of the project, Hawley's involvement, the Earth setting, the fan expectations, the theories. Now let's step back a bit. What does this all mean for the genre, maybe for the future of franchise television? Why does Alien, a franchise that's almost 5 decades old now, still possess this kind of cultural staying power?
Well, it endures because, as we've kind of touched on throughout, it really does transcend the basic creature feature format. Its influence is just massive and incredibly persistent.
You see its DNA everywhere.
Everywhere. We see it in major modern video games, right? Think of the isolated industrial settings, the body horror, the mechanical terror of something like Dead Space.
Obvious descendant.
Or even, arguably, some of the philosophical horror and societal collapse elements that are present in huge franchises like The Last of Us.
That's an interesting comparison, The Last of Us. It's that blending of biological horror, this uncontrollable, perfect organism with a really detailed commentary on societal failure and human nature under pressure.
Exactly. The creature, whether it's a xenomorph or a clicker, is almost just a catalyst. The real terror often comes from human greed, betrayal, the speed at which civilization unravels when stressed.
So Alien serves as this lasting metaphor for human hubris, our arrogance in thinking we can control nature or weaponize technology without consequence.
Precisely that. And the primal terror of the unknown, of course. It's genuinely existential horror at its best. It reminds us how small and vulnerable we ultimately are in the face of perfect, indifferent biological life, or even in different corporate structures.
Which sets up what feels like the biggest expectation for Alien Earth. This idea of a deliberate shift in genre focus. The hope seems to be that this marks a clear return to atmospheric horror.
Moving away from the more militaristic, action-heavy elements that, let's be honest, often dominated the later sequels and spin-offs.
Yeah, the Aliens versus Predator stuff, for example.
Right, that grounded, gritty tone that the teasers are highlighting, that seems to be the critical component for bringing back the suspense. We need silence, dread, the slow realization of danger, not just constant gunfire.
If Hawley is really focusing on human psychology, as his track record suggests,
Then we need to see that psychological breakdown under duress. The original Alien film was just a masterclass in slow burn dread and claustrophobia in space. Alien. Earth needs to find a way to translate that specific kind of claustrophobia to a terrestrial setting.
how do you do that on Earth, though?
Maybe using abandoned cityscapes, sprawling subterranean labs, densely populated but decaying housing projects, or corporate towers. Places that feel isolating even if they're technically on our planet.
So if they can manage to make a seemingly familiar location, like, I don't know, a suburban block or a gleaming corporate skyscraper, feel as menacing and isolated as the derelict ship on LV-426?
Then they will have absolutely nailed the translation of that atmospheric horror. That's the goal, I think.
And this level of ambition brings us neatly to the significance of the streaming strategy here.
Yeah.
You have Hulu and FX investing what must be a massive amount of money in high-budget, prestige sci-fi television like a major Alien series.
This is not a cheap show to make, no way.
It tells us a lot about the modern content landscape, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It signals that established quality intellectual property IP is the absolute currency of the realm right now.
Trying to launch a brand new $100 million plus original sci-fi concept today, it's a massive gamble for any platform.
Huge gamble. But you can bet much more heavily on a name like Alien. Especially, and this is key, if you put a proven prestige showrunner like Noah Hawley in charge, you're mitigating the risk with quality control.
Right. It's nostalgia, but hopefully elevated.
Exactly. This move signals that broader streaming platform strategy, betting heavily on successful nostalgia, but ensuring, or trying to ensure, that nostalgia is delivered with the highest possible production quality. They're using established IP to anchor high-end content delivery.
Aiming for committed long-term subscribers.
Yes, subscribers who are willing to pay premium prices for what feels like event television happening every week, rather than just disposable content.
And the Alien universe, with its inherent philosophical depth, its established visual language, its built-in fan base, it feels like the perfect anchor for that kind of commitment.
It provides instant recognition, right? But it also offers virtually unlimited room for someone like Hawley to explore that corporate dystopia and existential dread we talked about.
Turning it into a serialized commentary on our own world, potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the highest aspiration for it, I think.
So putting it all together, Alien, Earth is really shaping up to be far more than just, another continuation of a story we think we know.
Feels like it has higher ambitions.
Yeah. If the series successfully leans into that corporate paranoia, the moral decay of humanity, and the atmospheric suspense promised by Hawley's unique vision and those early teasers, it could genuinely achieve something quite rare.
It might not just revive a franchise that's been, let's say, inconsistent for a while.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah. It could actually succeed in restoring the core elements that made sci-fi horror truly deeply chilling in the first place.
Which is?
The slow, dawning realization that sometimes the monster outside your door,
Yeah.
it's simply a consequence of the terrifying betrayal committed much earlier by your own species. They're the systems we build.
A truly chilling thought to end on. Thanks for unpacking all that.
My pleasure. It's a fascinating project to track.
Next time on Trending Unpacked, we turn down the lights and grab some popcorn. It's October, and we're exploring why scary movies never stop trending.